everybody. I lived in New Orleans for 12 years. And one of the things I was thinking when I was trying to decide what to make for the show is I think sometimes Mardi Gras gets a bad rap because you think of all the drinking, you think of all the super fatty foods. You know, it's called Fat Tuesday, right? And you have pancakes, which of course we can make whole food, plant-based, no oil, and different things like that. So I thought, it's some of my favorite foods, and I've taught a couple other classes. In fact, in Kathy's Cooking Club, we're doing even another New Orleans style class. So one of my favorite things to do anyhow is to make a spice blend, right? So those of you who may not be familiar with New Orleans or Louisiana may have never heard of andouille. It's just a kind of sausage, just like there's Polish sausage and Italian sausage and breakfast sausage. And what's different between all of those, as far as I'm extracting. So let's be clear, I'm not telling you to go eat meat. We're having obviously a whole food, plant-based, no oil option that also doesn't involve going and getting some already pre-made vegan meat or something like that. You don't have to use cauliflower. We're gonna do it today though. Another great way, if you're like, well, I wanted something a little chewier, soy curls are often really good. So if you can have soy, they're made with non-GMO soybeans. They're just cooked, smushed, and extruded. So they don't have a lot of issues. And I'll show you, you know, your mileage may vary depending on who you follow and why you follow it, if you can have soy. But when these are just like little dry things, they are cleaner than TVP, which is often made with GMO ingredients and things, not always. And what happens is you just pour some hot water or hot broth, squeeze them out, and basically they look like chicken tenders. So that's one thing we could do. And I'm just gonna go ahead and break down about half of this cauliflower. And I thought you could use frozen, but I thought maybe we would just do this real quick in case you haven't done that. Now, another thing before I cut this, if you wanted to save some cauliflower steaks out of this, cut off either side and use those, and then we could have cauliflower steaks. Actually, I could go ahead and I could demo that. And that's a way, and we're not going to use any of this green stuff, though it's not poisonous. And honestly, if you wanted to put some of the smaller leaves in a homemade cruciferous crunch, you'd save some money, which I'm always interested in. See how I cut that out? Now I have this perfect cauliflower steaks. So I'm just going to take the knife and get this bottom part off of here. Cheryl has finally gotten into cauliflower. Like, she is team cauliflower so hard right now, and it's making me so happy. So when we have a cauliflower steak, I know this is a little bit beyond the scope of today. You want to make sure it's held together with all of this stuff you might normally remove. You could remove, see, that's not so tasty. So we could get a little bit of that. And I guess it's not that it's not tasty, it's going to be really, really tough. And, you know, we're going to get enough fiber out of this. So see how it's all held together? Then you want to go about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. Cut this down. And your bonus recipe for today is throw this into a slow cooker, maybe with some carrots, some potatoes, make a little sauce. And then you could cook it all day while you're working, and you'll have a lovely dinner. And I'm just going to cut this up into some florets. You could do the whole cauliflower as well. It's not like anything bad would happen. But this is literally the 3rd time I've made this recipe recently. So sometimes they're going to break off into good florets. And like, see, that one's too big. You want them to be approximately the same size. Let's see. And we could even, since we're doing this live, we can make it a little bit smaller. These are pretty thin, so even though they look bigger, they're not really that much bigger. A lot of times the cauliflower will be like, hello, I would like to be this size, please. Okay. Oh, and that's a big guy. I'm going to cut these down just a little bit more, and we'll cut, the bigger it is, the longer the cooking time. We're going to throw this in the Breville air fryer behind me. However, this will work in the oven too. We're going to put it on 400 degrees, and we're going to cook it for, I think I say 10 minutes. Let me double check that. 5 minutes. What we're going to do in that 5 minutes is it's going to start to cook. It's going to start to like release some of its juices and become wetter. If your cauliflower is really old and that doesn't happen, later on we could toss it with a little bit of water, broth, or aquafaba. But so far, even when I found one in the back of my fridge, and it worked out just fine. And you could toss this in any sauce or spice blend that you want. So I know a lot of you guys have my 4 favorite spice blend printout, and Chef AJ's favorite barbecue blend of mine is in there. So we're just going to put them in here. We're going to let them cook for 5 minutes. We're going to make this spice blend. So we're basically making like a dry rub out of it. And so let's go ahead and make this blend. Blends do require extra ingredients and things like that, but it's just not that big a deal, you know, once you kind of get them together. So some of the things we're going to use, let me make sure I've got this where we can see it. We're going to use some ground celery seed, some garlic powder, onion powder, allspice, oregano, thyme, marjoram, smoked paprika, cayenne if you want. And we'll talk about some things you can substitute, and I'll show you the blend. And it smells so good. It smells just so very good. What makes sausage? So like if you see vegan sausage patties, the only thing that makes them taste like sausage is the spice blend. And same thing for meat. Sausage comes from a long tradition of people trying to eat meat that's about to go off. So in the very past, so these spices helped it taste delicious. So imagine what it will do for some food that actually tastes delicious already. So I'm on team spice blends. So we're going to put a little bit of nutritional yeast in here. We're going to do about 2 tablespoons. If you can't have nutritional yeast, just leave it out. It just adds a little extra umami, and it's kind of nice. Same thing, if there's something you're allergic to or can't have, just leave it out. Just let it go. It's all going to be okay. We're going to do 2 teaspoons of thyme. Let you see this from above. I know it's not super exciting, but it's pretty easy to do. And andouille sausage is native to New Orleans. We're going to do a little bit of oregano now. And so this is a spice blend I really haven't seen anywhere, and I'm not sure if it's not super populous around the US. It can be often hard to find it in a salt-free blend. That's 1 teaspoon of marjoram. I love marjoram. A lot of people don't have it. You could just use some extra oregano. I promise the andouille police will not come to your house. Going to do some garlic powder. I use garlic powder and onion powder a lot. I'm using a teaspoon of smoked paprika. I'm kind of short of showing you this. Can you tell I put it in the wrong thing and then kind of backtracked with the label? So if you don't like smoky flavors, just use regular paprika. And then we're going to use a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. You can use as much or as little cayenne as you want. If you like spicy, you do you. Cheryl doesn't like spicy, and this cayenne, I don't know if it's original to this, is quite hot. So I'm just going to put in like a 1/4 teaspoon. I'm going to use about, let me see, a 1/16. So it's like half of, like a 1/4 of this, a 1/4 of a 1/4. So just a little bit. And an 1/8 of a teaspoon of allspice. Oop, that's a half. Let me get the, and you want to be, you know, pretty mindful, like the celery seed and the allspice can overpower it pretty quickly. So start with smaller amounts. You can do that also. I'm trying to see. Yeah, oh, and an 1/8 of a teaspoon of black pepper. You can always do just a little bit. Blend this together, taste it, and readjust. And in fact, I encourage you to do that. If there's an ingredient you're kind of like, I don't know how I feel about that, start small. Okay, this is just my spice grinder attachment that comes on to, actually I think I can show you better from this side. So see, it's just, this is the grinder. It's a smart, or the Ninja, it's Smart Torque. And this guy is just a spice grinder attachment I got for it. Even though most of these spices are already ground, putting it in a spice blender, the Beast small blender container or another small blender container will help all those ingredients really incorporate well. So when you sprinkle some on, you get a little bit of everything. If you just stir it around, I don't feel like it incorporates the same. Going to be loud for just a minute. Possibly. There we go. And that's really enough. So if we did this with whole celery seeds, then I would have gone longer. But see, it doesn't have to be like absolutely perfect blended into oblivion. And what you can do, and I encourage you to do this, is to take a little teaspoon or a little thing, mix it around, and then you can take a little taste. And what I say to myself, and what you should say to yourself, does everything taste kind of evenly? Does one thing kind of poking me, standing out too much? Or is one thing, if I look down the list, is there something that I don't feel in there at all? This feels pretty well balanced to me, but sometimes it'll be like oregano. Maybe you substitute oregano for marjoram and now it's too much. So what I probably would do is come in and add a little more thyme, add a little more smoked paprika, and you can just keep playing with it. But it's really, really easy to do. We're going to toss our cauliflower in the andouille spice. See if I can move that where that won't be all up in everybody's face. And we'll take a look with this cauliflower, and let's see if you can see up here a little bit. So there's just a tiny bit of moisture on here, and that's all we're looking for. And I'm trying to see, how am I gonna, the best way to do this, let me pull it back so you can see what the heck is going on. And I put a piece of parchment paper in here so that I could do the little pieces. So I'm just gonna funnel all that right in here. You can see on this paper there's a little bit of wetness, and that's what I was talking about that was gonna happen naturally. I'm gonna add a little splash of water over here because I'm off doing something else. Now we're just gonna put about a tablespoon. It depends on how much cauliflower you're doing. So I'm gonna put some on the top. And if we find it doesn't stick, like I said, we can add some water or aquafaba, but so far it always sticks. See, it's already starting to stick. And I'll get a spoon. And usually what I do is I put some on, I move it around, and you can put as much as you want on. I'm just saying you're probably gonna need a tablespoon or two for sure. But if you want it, if you're like, I love that spice, it's so delicious, or My husband hates cauliflower, but I bet I can get him to eat it with a little more flavor on it. And this doesn't have any flour or anything like that on it, but it still gives it a little bit of a crust. There's no salt on here. You could also toss this with salt or salt substitute if you wanted to, but my plain salt substitute is onion powder, celery seed, and garlic powder. So all that's already in this mix. Okay, I'm going to move this over, see if I can do it without burning myself. And we're just going to cook this on 400 for 5 more minutes. And let's take a look at this andouille cauliflower. And so now we've got like a little bit of crunchy edges. It's browned. It's full of flavor. I leave the little pieces in here too, even though they're going to get a little bit crispier, almost like a chip, compared to this, which is going to be succulent. And I find that the stems on these cauliflowers almost have a texture that reminds me of shrimp. So this would also be good in a sandwich. I've made, if you go to healthyslowcooking.com, I do have like a cauliflower po' boy, which is like shrimp po' boy to me. It's so good though. And Cheryl absolutely loves it. Because she's like, why can't I eat that? I'm like, I have to do a class with that. And so this is going to be our lunch. And you could just make the cauliflower. You could put the spice blend on broccoli for less time. Cauliflower allows more cooking time. You could do it with soy curls. You could put it on tofu, tempeh, carrots. In fact, I'm going to be trying a thing with carrots over the weekend.